Fans of Emmerdale are well aware that quiet weeks are few and far between in the Yorkshire-based soap, which has promised an action-packed year following the devastating Corriedale crash. Despite the deaths of Ray Walters, played by Joe Absalom, and Celia Daniels, Jay Griffiths, their reign of terror continues to haunt the village as Bear Wolf, Joshua Richards, grapples with his involvement in Ray's death. Graham Foster's unexpected return to Emmerdale leaves Kim Tate, Claire King, and Joe Tate, Ned Porteous, speechless, having believed him dead for the past 6 years. Meanwhile, Cain Dingle, Jeff Hordley, faces a monumental struggle as he receives a cancer diagnosis, seemingly confronting it alone in a special episode that delves into his internal turmoil and emotions. Here's what lies ahead in the Dales. Moira Barton faces double murder charges. Both Moira Barton, Natalie J. Robb, and Cain are stunned when they're arrested for murder in front of their children. During questioning at the police station, Cain refuses to speak. Moira insists throughout her interview that she was framed by Celia, but is left reeling when the police officer discloses that one of the victims was Celia herself. Panic sets in for Moira as she becomes aware of the substantial evidence mounted against her. Whilst Cain is released without charge, his solicitor delivers crushing news. One of the bodies was wrapped in Moira's blanket. An enraged Cain vows he won't return home without his wife. The drama reaches a climax when the officer discloses that Moira's DNA was discovered on the blanket in which Anya Barisha, Alia al-Shabibi, was buried, leaving Moira stunned as she is charged with the murders of both Celia and Anya. The village is plunged into despair. Chaz Dingle, Cain, and Caleb Milligan are heartbroken as they watch Moira being led away to a police car, informing Cain that she's been charged with double murder. Cain pays Moira a visit in prison and is visibly shaken and worried when he sees her sporting a black eye. Cain receives his medical verdict. As he awaits his appointment, a nervous Cain converses with a patient suffering from prostate cancer. His consultant confirms that Cain has aggressive but localized prostate cancer. Overwhelmed by the diagnosis and potential side effects of the suggested radical prostatectomy, Cain abruptly ends the consultation and departs. He returns to the village in a state of shock, struggling to come to terms with his diagnosis. His escalating denial and anger lead him to clash with anyone who crosses his path, and he yearns for solitude to grapple with his inner turmoil. Cain reaches his limit, lashing out at both Sarah Sugden, Katie Hill, and Liam Kavanagh, Johnny McPherson, about his overwhelming burdens before storming off in a state of fear and rage, unable to suppress his emotions any longer. Later that day, Cain sits alone at Zach Dingle's graveside, finding it hard to deal with his diagnosis. Bear is interrogated regarding Anya. Ruby Milligan, consumed by remorse over Anya, comes across Patty Kirk. She deceives an irate and frightened Bear, falsely claiming the ribbon he left for Anya worked and that authorities believe she has been located. A distraught Bear recounts Anya's final moments, noting that Ray attempted to assist her, but Ruby angrily snapped back, insisting Ray deserved a prolonged, agonizing demise. The village woke beneath a bruised sky, low clouds pressing down on stone cottages and sodden fields like an unspoken warning. Emmerdale had endured storms before, fires, crashes, bloodshed. Yet there was something different in the air now, a heaviness that lingered, a sense that the past had clawed its way back from the grave and refused to be buried again. Moira Barton stood at the kitchen sink, staring at nothing. The kettle screamed, shrill and sharp, before she snapped back into the room and switched it off. Her hands trembled as she poured the water, sloshing it over the rim. She didn't notice the burn on her skin. Pain felt distant lately, like something happening to someone else. Cain watched her from the doorway. He'd been watching her a lot recently, the way she startled at noises, the way her eyes darted to the window every time a car slowed outside.
He recognized fear when he saw it, fear that lived in the bones. "You're all right?" he asked, gruffly. Moira didn't answer. Cain stepped forward. "Moira!" She flinched. "I'm fine," she said, quickly, too quickly, "just tired." He didn't believe her. He didn't push it either. Cain Dingle had learned the hard way that forcing truths only made them fester. The knock on the door came seconds later. 3 sharp raps. Cain's jaw tightened. Moira froze. They exchanged a look, something unspoken, raw, instinctive. Cain moved first, yanking the door open with barely restrained fury. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. "Cain Dingle?" one asked. "What now?" Cain snapped. "We're arresting you and Moira Barton on suspicion of murder." The world stopped. Moira let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream. Cain turned, disbelief crashing into rage. "You what?" "Cain," Moira whispered. The officers stepped inside. Handcuffs clicked. Outside, their children watched in horror as their parents were led away. The interview rooms. The police station smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Cain sat rigid in his chair, arms folded, eyes burning holes into the table. He said nothing, didn't blink, didn't react. The solicitor beside him murmured reassurances that went unheard. Across the hall, Moira's interview was unraveling. "I didn't kill anyone," she said for the 3rd time, voice shaking now. "Celia Daniels framed me. She wanted to destroy us." The officer nodded slowly. "Celia Daniels is dead." No, that's not possible." "She was one of the victims." The words
Moira's
landed
heart
like a
slammed
hammer.
against her ribs. "She can't be! She was alive! She—" "Miss Barton," the officer continued, sliding a photograph across the table. "There's more." Moira looked down. Her blanket, the one she'd wrapped Isaac in when he was a baby, the one she thought she'd lost years ago. Blood-stained, mud-caked. "One of the bodies was wrapped in this," the officer said quietly. "Your DNA is all over it." Moira's breath hitched. "No," she whispered. "Someone took it. Someone planted it." "Anya Orisha was buried in that blanket," the officer said. Moira's world shattered. Goodbye without promises. Cain was released without charge. Moira wasn't. The village gathered as word spread, whispers turning to murmurs, murmurs to stunned silence. Chas arrived just in time to see Moira being led to the police car. "No," Chas said, shaking her head. "This isn't happening." Caleb stood beside her, jaw clenched, fists tight. Cain looked broken. Moira turned once, eyes finding her husband's. "I didn't do this." "I know," Cain replied instantly. They took her anyway. Cain watched the car disappear down the road, something dark and dangerous awakening in his chest. "I'm not going home," he growled, "not without her." Bruises and bars. The prison visiting room was cold. Moira sat opposite Cain, a fading bruise darkening her cheek. Cain's eyes flashed when he saw it. "Who did that?" he demanded. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." She reached for his hand through the gap. "They're trying to break me. I won't let them." Cain swallowed hard. "I'll fix this," he promised. "Whoever's done this, I'll find them." Moira nodded, but fear lingered in her eyes. For the first time, Cain wondered if even he could protect her from this. The dead walking. Kim Tate dropped her glass. It shattered on the floor as she stared across Home Farm's driveway. "No," she whispered. Graham Foster stood there, very much alive. Joe Tate staggered back. "You're dead." "So you thought," Graham replied calmly. 6 years of lies, secrets, and buried sins surfaced in an instant. Graham's return wasn't coincidence, it was a reckoning, and Emmerdale wasn't ready. The diagnosis.
Cain sat alone in the hospital waiting room. The man beside him chatted nervously about prostate cancer. Cain barely listened until the words echoed too closely to ignore. The consultant didn't waste time. "Aggressive but localized," she said. "We recommend radical prostatectomy." Cain laughed bitterly. "You're cutting my guts out and calling it help?" She spoke of survival rates, side effects, futures. Cain stood abruptly. "I'm done." He walked out before the tears came. Anger without a target. Back in the village, Cain lashed out at Sarah, at Liam, at anyone unlucky enough to cross his path. "You think I don't know what's coming?" he snarled at Liam. "You think I ain't scared?" Later, he found himself at Zach's grave. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted softly. "Not without her." The wind carried his words away.